So we're going to go ahead and get started. And basically, this is going to be a presentation on Quarto and how to create a Quarto document. But especially, I'm assuming that a lot of you have experience or background with R Markdown. So what differs between a Quarto document and an R Markdown document? And then what are some of the new features that you can use in Quarto that either weren't available in R Markdown or just, easier to use in Quarto? So what's different, first of all, about Quarto? So there are a number of differences. Some of them are kind of subtle. Some of them are more obvious. One thing is that it has all the capability of all the various packages that you would use for different purposes in R Markdown, like blog down, distill, book down, articles, without having to actually install those packages. So that's nice. So you don't have to manage a bunch of different packages and make sure you have the right version and that kind of thing. So that's very convenient. It's also more featured up, especially when it comes to HTML. And so for websites and presentations in particular, has a lot of nice features. We'll look at some of them today. But the Revealjs slides or HTML-based slides are especially nice. You could do a lot with those. The website capacity is really nice. We're not going to cover websites today. I think that should be a separate workshop. There's a lot involved in creating a website, but it's there. And it can render deeply nested files, which is a nice feature. So if you have a website with a nested file structure, it can render all of that at once. A big change is that it's language agnostic. It works with Python and with Julia, which you could work with Python and R Markdown before, but this actually runs a Jupyter notebook engine. So that's a big change for RStudio. They're rebranding as Posit, and they're trying to reach a wider audience. So that's a big change. So my background with Quarto is I've been an R Markdown user for a couple of years now. I switched over to R. I was sort of a late career adopter of R, but I've really enjoyed using R Markdown and what it does for my workflow. I'm sure you find the same thing, being able to integrate code with your text, and it seemed to get better all the time. And then I heard the announcement about Quarto, and I was really interested in learning more about it. So I did a workshop this summer at the RStudio conference. It was a 2-day workshop, and it was called From R Markdown to Quarto, and it was a great workshop. So I have a similar idea here that you guys are Markdown users, and so I want to show you, what I've learned and what I've been doing with Quarto recently and some of the features. So on the agenda today, so we're going to start with an R Markdown document, and from there we're going to change the document code to what is standard in Quarto. So one thing you'll notice right away is you can just run an R Markdown document, R Markdown code as Quarto, so you can just start right away with your existing documents. And then from there, we're going to mess around with the parameters feature. You can actually put parameters and parameter values in the YAML header, so that if you want to write multiple versions of a report and just change out the parameter values, like same version of a report, same code, except for maybe a different country or something, or in the case that we're going to look at, you want to just change out one variable, you can do that with the YAML header, and it makes it easier to produce multiple versions of the same report, or to render your document with different values, different models. So I think that's a really cool feature. So we'll spend some time looking at that. Then we're going to look at the visual editor. That's another big difference between Quarto and R Markdown, is that they have almost like a word editor, where you can, instead of typing, word star for italics, you have a little italics toggle button, or and it inserts the source code for you. And I don't use it so much for that. I find it easy enough to get italics or bold, but for columns and other features or inserting pictures or images, it's really nice. So I'll show you some of that. And then from there, we'll make some Revealjs slides, and I'll show you some of the features associated with Revealjs slides. And the last thing we'll do is we'll create a document, a PDF document. And one cool feature, it's not fully developed yet. It's not totally applicable for political science, but one cool feature, I'm hoping we'll be able to get to this. We'll have enough time. I think we will, is that they have these journal article formats. Made with Lua filters. Don't ask me about all the technical details, but it's really cool. You can get like you can format your working paper basically like a preprint for a journal, and they're going to be adding more journals over time. So it's good to sort of get a handle on that now. And maybe you can use it like if you're sending a journal. We're going to work with the Elsevier template. So if you were sending something to World Development, maybe you could use that template. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen with you. All right, so I sent you this R Markdown document. Okay, so we can go ahead and you can go ahead and knit that. Okay, or if you just want to go and save and make sure it works. So you can knit that document, and then we can just do a basic save as here. Now, usually if you're going to start a Quarto document, you would not do it this way. You would go to File, and then you would go to New File, and then you would choose Quarto document or Quarto presentation, or you could also start a document from the terminal. But I think the easiest thing is just to go and start it from there and put a new Quarto document in your project. But what I want to show you here basically is that you can just do a save as, all right, in your project folder, and save it as a Quarto document, okay, and it should basically, as a Quarto document with just R Markdown code, it should just render. And notice we're rendering, we're not knitting. So that's one difference that you see immediately when you shift over to Quarto. So here we go. So there is the rendered file, right? That's what it looks like. And here we just have one trend line for female labor force participation, a map of female labor force participation, and female labor force participation and development, basically just a scatter plot. So that works just right out of the box. Take an R Markdown document, save it as a Quarto document, and it immediately works. So we'll go back to the code here, and we'll start changing things. I'll just change things one at a time, so that you can see what is different between the code for Quarto and R Markdown. So first thing is that instead of output, we'll have format, and we'll have HTML. All right. We can just save that. Then from there, instead of one of the bigger changes is that instead of having this knitter options chunk here, okay, which has always been a little bit awkward in the setup code chunk, you can just do in the YAML header execute, okay, and then put whatever options you want in the YAML header there, message with YAML code, and notice it's lowercase, true or false, warning false. Okay, so we're telling it here, we want it to run the code, we want Quarto to run the code in the document We don't want the code to show, though. We want it to be executed, and we want the results to be shown, but we don't want the code to be shown. We don't want any messages about the code to be shown, and we don't want warnings to be shown. Okay, and then we can just take this out of our setup code chunk. All right, and then the other thing is that basically you can also include, rather than, and it's fine if you want to keep it this way, but rather than having the chunk options in these curly brackets, curly braces here, you can set them up as YAML inside of the code chunk with a hash pipe operator, hash pipe. And people get a big kick out of that hash pipe operator, all kinds of bad jokes about hash pipes. Okay, so here you would do hash pipe label setup, and then here you would do include, and instead of equals and capital uppercase false, you would do include false. Okay. And then similarly, we can go down to the other chunks and we can change those. Just a different hash pipe. Whoops, not label. All right, just leave it like that. And this one I've already changed. And that is actually a change in knitter, which also you can do, I believe, in our Markdown. Yes, you can, because that works in our Markdown. So, but that is the new way of doing chunk options. Then let's go ahead and render that and make sure everything works. Okay, everything should work. Looks good to me on my end. Hopefully you were able to get that to work. It should look the same. Nothing's changed. That's just the differences. I'm just showing you the differences there and how to set up a Quarto document versus an R Markdown document. So, okay, so from there, what we can do is we can play around a little bit with the parameters feature. Okay, so here we can just put the parameters in the YAML header. We'll start with that, and we can just say we're going to name these generically yvar, yname, xvar, x variable. Right, so we have some y variable in the documents. We want to give it a name, and we want to be able to use that name in the document to refer to the variable. And then we have some sort of x variable for the scatter plot. In this example, I'm going to be showing you here, I'm not going to change the x variable. I'm only going to change the y variable, but I just want to show you how this works. So we're starting off with this. You can take it from down here, actually. This is going to be our y variable. Copy and paste it from here. This is the female labor force participation variable. Okay. And then we're going to call this female labor force participation. And the x variable is going to be GDP per capita. And we're going to put that there. Okay, so that's the first step. Okay, and then instead of having this code here, we're instead going to say what we're going to define these variables in the document. Y variable equals params, so we're taking it from this params vector here, more or less, and we're going to identify y variable or y var for the document as that parameter. So we're going to say params $y var, and then yname is going to be params $, we're going to set that to params $, y name. And then we're going to say xvar is params $xvar. Okay. And then what we can do is we can do everywhere we have female labor force participation, we want that to be yvar. Everywhere we have we have the GDP per capita, we want that to be xvar, right? So so we are going to basically just do a find and replace female labor force participation, and we're going to replace that with yvar. And then let's see, 19 occurrences replaced, hopefully work. And then xvar is going to be, oh wait, GDP per capita. Replace that with xvar. 3 occurrences, okay. And then why don't we go ahead and render that and see what it looks like. See if it works. Fingers crossed, because I didn't do this find and replace last night. I actually changed everything manually, so hoping it's going to work. Okay, and we got something funny there with here, I'll show you what we got. It's interesting. Where's my Zoom? Okay, here we go. So where is this? Here we go. All right, so so that did work. It rendered everything, but look what it did in the title, because I changed FLFP. I had an FLFP here and I changed it to yvar, so it changed that to y. It just says yvar, and that's not what we want. But we can fix that. That's interesting. So we can fix that, or maybe it's not so interesting. But what I had in mind here was we can change that to what we can do here in these titles. We kind of do want, we want these to change with whatever parameter or whatever variable we're putting in there. But we can just put some R code there, and we can just say use R, and instead of Y variable, we can put, or yvar, we can put Y name, right? Because that's a parameter that we set up here, right? So let's do that. Do the same thing here, Y name, and the same thing here. And render it and see if that works. And it did. Let me show you what that looks like. Okay, that's what that looks like. See, change the title. And then, all right. So then basically, maybe we want to clean a few other things up here. And what I had in mind here was we have this code down here in the map for a caption. So rather than having the same title, you can just take the title out here, I think. Instead of taking the title from the indicator info vector, we can take that out. So let's just delete all the titles, because we kind of know basically from the heading of that section or that slide what the title is, and we could fool around with this, try to give different titles or work on code for titles. But for now, let's just take out the titles in the labs labels argument there. So so here we'll go and we'll replace that. And this is just to give some uniformity to the labels across the different visualizations here. Okay. We have it like that. Okay. All right. I'm just going to render that, make sure that works. Okay. So now we just have the source there, the source, right? And we don't have to mess around with the title here because it's kind of implied by, I mean, this is a pretty good title, Female Labor Force Participation and Development, right? And it's kind of obvious what's going on there. Okay, so that's just a little more housekeeping. And then from there, what we can do, now this is where it gets fun, is we can start messing around with the parameters. We can change the parameters that we have. So now instead of, let's say instead of female labor force participation, I just have another one here that I pulled up last night. And instead of labor force participation, we are going to do the dependency ratio, which is the percentage, the number of people, the ratio of people outside of the workforce to people inside to the workforce, to the number of people in the workforce. And this just measures the burden that young people and old people together represent on those who are in the workforce, right? That's called the dependency ratio. And let me just send this to you. So that's that code. So we can put that parameter in here where the Y-var is, and we can change the name to dependency ratio. And we can render that. Oops, I forgot to put it in parentheses. That's not going to work, is it? I don't think it'll work. Not parentheses, quotation marks. Did it work? Oh, it did work. It worked. Who knew? Thought you needed the quotation marks there. Okay, so basically what you see then is, go ahead and share this with you. That. Okay. And that's the dependency ratio. You can see in this map, it's higher in sub-Saharan Africa, countries with primarily rural economies, countries with younger populations, countries with older populations like Japan. And then we can see the relationship between that and development. And then we also see, the clustering of countries in different regions, kind of like we see on the map here. Here's all the sub-Saharan African countries up here in pink. All right, so that's what I wanted to show you about the parameters trick. It's kind of cool. So from there, what I want to show you next is a little bit about Revealjs slides. So let me go ahead and go back to my code here. And then from here, we can change the format to Revealjs. And I'm just going to do like this for now. And okay, so now we're going to go to the visual editor and we're going to see what that's all about. So I'd like to show you a little bit about the visual editor, and from there we can try inserting here. Yeah, slide columns. There it is. Okay, so so this is what it looks like in the visual editor, and you can see this is kind of like a Microsoft Word type thing. So if you're down here and you want to have boldface font, this is in bold. And if you want to have italics, this is italics. And then if you go back to the source code again, you'll see it looks just like Markdown, right? So you can switch back and forth between the source code and the visual editor. And I find this really to be helpful in certain situations, especially when I'm writing lectures, because there's a lot of stuff I want to do for lectures with HTML that are easier to do in the visual editor. One of them is to insert slide columns. Okay, so we can insert slide columns, and then from there we can also insert a figure or an image, And so I have some images here, some dictators. And so Mobutu Sese Seko is one. Let's open that. And then we can have a caption that says Mobutu Sese Seko. And then we can have alternative text for people who are visually impaired. We can have a link going out to an external site. And then if we insert that, it looks like that. And that's one column. And then in the other column, we can insert another figure or image. In here, we could do Park Chung-hee from South Korea. And then we can write a caption and hit OK. And if we go back to the source code, that's what it looks like in the source code. So you could easily just do this in the source code, but I find it better to insert the columns because you don't have to print all of these colons, right? And this is essentially a fence div, right? And that's how Quarto does columns. So it's really convenient if you're writing slides or an HTML document to do it this way. And then what we can do here is we can have dictators. We want to have a slide maybe on dictators and development. All right, we can save that. And then we can, and you can see the column widths are even here, but you can change the column widths. You can make one wider, the other more narrow. You can fool around with those parameters. Like I said, you can insert alternate text, all kinds of stuff. Okay, so then you can render from here. And let's see what that looks like when we render it. All right. So that's what the slides, the basic slides look like. And there's our dictators and development slide. Let me go and go back to the code and just show you a few of the options that are available with Revealjs. So if we go like that and we do format colon and then indent the next line and Revealjs, why is it giving me that? And then here are a few of the options that I like to use. You can choose a theme, and then you can choose different options for the slides themselves, like how they transition. One option's fade. I use that one frequently, and then you can include slide numbers. You can add, so we could have, this was a lecture, we could have it be lecture 1, and we could have a subtitle, Quarto lesson. We could have author Manuel Teitelbaum. Then we could have the date be 2022-10-3. And we can actually also add a footer. So with a link, so I'm just going to copy and paste this just to show you what it's like. So that's a link to actually my course website that I've designed. It's psc2339.com if you want to check it out. I can show you guys how to do that the next time. That's a pretty cool template. And then you can also have a logo. So you can have a photo as your logo sitting there in the corner, in the bottom corner, and we'll just use Mobutu's picture because I happen to have that in the file. And we'll just render this, and you can see what a Quarto file looks like. Let's see what's happening here. Key date. It doesn't like my date. Why doesn't it like my date? Author.
I think it's because you have the date there twice.
Oh, there you go. Thank you. It would have taken me forever to figure that out. And then I would have taken the date out, and then I would have rendered it, and I would have been like, oh, look, it has the date. It's magic. Okay, so here we go. So we're going to render that. And you can see that's the moon theme. Looks pretty good, right? There you have the link to my external website. There you have your logo. This would not be Mobutu's picture, but maybe your picture, who knows, whatever you want to include there. And then some other nice things is you have these options with Revealjs slides. You can, you have a speaker view that you can use, PDF export mode, so students can export your HTML slides as PDFs if they're complaining that they don't have PDFs to take notes on. And you can just kind of check those out, but that's a nice, that toolbar is just automatically included there with your Revealjs slides. Okay. All right, that's just some of the features. I encourage you to check out the Quarto.org site and the guide in particular, and all of the options that are available for you there in slides, and the different things that you can do in your presentations, and with things like photos in particular, you can place them very precisely, and you can make them smaller or larger, but there's all kinds of art you can do really with the slides. There's really a lot of capability there, and there are some other presentations. I can send you guys the links that get more in depth into detail about the options with respect to Revealjs slides. Okay. All right, so last thing I want to show you here, just to kind of round things out, is some things that you can do with PDF documents that you couldn't do before, or at least not very easily. So now we're going to switch the format. First of all, we're going to take this dictators in development picture out, because that's probably not going to be as useful for our paper. We're going to put some random text in there. So wait, I'm not showing my my code here. Hold on. All right. So we're going to put some random text in there, and let me see. I have some random text sitting over here in this file. Nope, but that file's not coming up. So you can just Google for a lorem ipsum generator, text generator, and I'm just generating some text here. Okay. And I'm going to cut and paste it into the file so it looks more like article, introduction, and then some text. All right, and let's see, what else do we want to do? Maybe we want to add some text, some other sections too, because this is going to be an article, so it's going to have lots of text. And explain that. We're going to have some references down here instead of pictures for our article. And then what are we going to do? We're going to add some references. Anything else we want to do before we add some citations? All right. I have about 15 minutes left here. So yeah, so let's just, that's one cool thing. Actually, just discovered yesterday is that it will automatically populate a reference list for you based on what you have somewhere on your machine in your Zotero files. So let's see, we want to do insert citation, and look at that. It's just finding citations on my machine, and let's say I want Ajamoglu and Robinson. Here we go, 2012, and it's going to insert that. Okay, and let's say down here, put a different citation, and so that's a really cool feature. Or alternatively, you could have your bib file in your project folder here, like usual, and then just access that and type in. But it's going to create, if you do it this way, it's going to create a bib file for you, and you can see it show up here, references.bib. So that's kind of interesting. And let's say I want to add something about another citation. And this time I'm going to choose Alquist. And I'm going to say Alquist said. All right, and that's just going to give you the date, but it's still going to insert the reference there. And now if I render that, I should get the references. Fingers crossed. Let's see, that should be a PDF, should have created a PDF document. Oh, did I not change the format to PDF? I did not change the format. So we're just going to say PDF. And anything else I want to change here? I don't need this stuff. So you may want to save that as a separate file now. And I'm not going to save it as a separate file. I'm just going to keep going here. But it's going to tell you when you change the format, you have to restart Quarto. So we're going to do that. We're going to take out the footer and the logo. We're going to keep the date for now. I'm going to change some of those options later on. Right. And we're going to keep everything else the same. We're going to render it now. I should get a PDF document. And there's the PDF. Okay. And there are the references at the end. And it's messing something up here with the page numbers. I don't know why it's doing this. Also, it's supposed to be Chicago style. Can anybody tell me? I think Chicago style is supposed to have capital letters for the title. So I don't think it's quite doing everything correctly here. The journal articles look pretty good. I'm not sure if this is a Zotero issue or if this is a Quarto issue. I'm going to have to troubleshoot that. But you get the basic gist of it, right? So a few more things. I have about 10 minutes left. I want to show you a couple more things here before we go. So let's see. So we can add author, date. Okay, we can put an abstract. That's a useful one. And then we can just take some of our lorem ipsum text here and put it in there for the abstract. Here we go. Here we go. I'm just going to copy and paste this from the Quarto website just so you can see how this looks for. All right. So change to my name. We'll use Bill Gates's ORCID ID though. EJT at gwu.edu. Name, George Washington University. I'm not going to put my address in there. I think that's pretty good. So we'll put some affiliations in there. And then the next thing I want to show you before I render it again is you can use these extensions. So if you go to Terminal and you install the journal extension for Elsevier, so the syntax is Quarto install extension Quarto journals Elsevier, okay, and it should install Quarto install. What am I missing? Oh, I know. With Windows 11, you have to, this is interesting. So you can't just write, most machines, I think it's going to be Quarto, what I just wrote. But if you're on Windows 11, I think that's the reason you have to write quarto.cmd extension Quarto journal Elsevier. Hopefully it'll work this time. Yes. Not found. Did I spell something wrong? Oh, it seems like it's there. So in any case, after you download the extension, you're going to, and I'm just going to cut and paste this in the interest of time. Instead of just format PDF, you're going to have format Elsevier PDF journal, and then you can put the name of the journal. Actually, it shouldn't be Journal of Development Studies. Journal of Development Studies is Taylor and Francis Journal, so maybe World Development. and formatting preprint, and then we can render that, and it doesn't like something. Did not work. It did work. Told me it didn't work, but it worked. Okay, so here, it has a silly name for a journal article. It's called Lecture 1, but it did work. There you go. That's what it looks like. That's pretty cool, isn't it? For like 5 minutes of work, you got all that formatting. And something, that's what, no. Yeah, that's what failed. Something happened with the references at the end there. I don't know why the references didn't render, but it should give you fully formatted references at the end of that document. And I'm not sure why that didn't work out, but that gives you an idea. I'm sure it looks like I did something in the misplaced alignment, tab and character, politics and society. Anybody see where that is in global supply chains? Oh, it's one of the references that's throwing it off. So we'd have to troubleshoot the references. That's a partial title from one of the references. You're not looking at the code here, but basically that's the error it's sort of giving there. Okay, there we go. Okay, last thing I want to show you is this cool feature here that they have Quarto pubs, kind of like the old R pubs, where you can just publish the document immediately as soon as you have a Quarto pubs account. So any HTML document that you want to share with people is going to be public, so you have to be wary of that. But if you just need a quick way to publish something, then basically what you can do is change this from Elsevier HTML, and then you just type in the terminal. Well, let's render it as an HTML so you can see what that looks like. All right, again, silly title, probably should change that, but that's what it looks like as an HTML, which also looks pretty good, right? And let's see, and the references came out in the HTML. So that's pretty cool. All right, so now if you want, last step here is if you want to publish that online to share with like your friends or, you know, whatever, your professors, you can just go to the terminal, quarto.cmd, publish Quarto pub. It's not a website or a book project. So I was mistaken. I thought it was any HTML project, but it has to be a website or a book project. But it is cool, a cool feature. I encourage you to check it out if you get a chance. The Quarto pubs. All right, guys, that's all I have. Right in time. Do you guys have any questions? No? All right, great. Well, I hope it was useful. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll send you some links to additional presentations, and I'm going to record this one and put it up on YouTube so that you'll have access to it and other people have access to it. Okay. All right, well, have a good rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks.